All right, I've got a couple of tremendous guests right now, and one of them a woman who absolutely is standing up for not just herself, but for all women that have been done wrong by across the world. Her name is Tara Reade. She is a geopolitical commentator and former aide to then Senator Biden. In addition to that, Tara Reade is a writer, a poet, an actor, and an American activist. She is passionate about animal rescue and environmental issues and stopping horse slaughter. Tara has worked her whole life to protect those with no voice by speaking truth to power, and continues to advocate for survivors by writing about her experience surviving trauma in 2019. She's also been one of 7 women who came forward regarding Joe Biden's inappropriate behaviour in 2020. She shared her entire history with Joe Biden. Her first book, Left Out, When the Truth Doesn't Fit In, and you can get that, by the way, on her website, which is Tara Reade Author, spelled TARAREADE, author.com. And with her, she's got Radha Stirling, who is the CEO of Due Process International. Representing Tara is also a leading human rights activist, crisis manager, and policy consultant. Following, I do apologise for my voice, everybody, this afternoon. I've got the flu. On the United Arab Emirates and the wider Middle East, she is the founder of the CEO and British-based organisation Detained in Dubai, which has helped more than 20,000 victims of injustice over the past 13 years. That is spectacular. Due Process International and IPEX, Interpol and extradition reform. Stirling also hosts the Gulf Injustice piece. And I've got these 2 wonderful ladies on the line right now. Hello, how are you both?
Thank you. Very well. Good to hear from you, and good to hear the Australian accent as well. Thanks for having us on.
Thank you. Much appreciated. I watched the interview on 60 Minutes, and it was very hard to watch. I mean, I felt your pain. I literally felt your pain. The amount of courage that none of us, I'll be honest, I don't think any male could even begin to imagine how much courage it takes to speak up when something like that happens. But you did have it. You found it. You found the courage to speak up in a public forum when somebody does you wrong. You have to out them, and you did that. And you had some claims to make historically against Joe Biden, and you did that. And I would like to thank you on behalf of the world and other women who have had similar experiences for coming forward.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your kind words. And, Australia 60 Minutes was really lovely. I really enjoyed working with them. They were so kind. And it was probably the best interview I did as far as any major media at that time.
The thing that, I always go, I ask a couple of questions whenever there are claims, mate. And one is, what does this person have to gain by making this claim? And if the answer is nothing, absolutely nothing, and in fact, if it goes further to say they have far more to lose than they have to gain, I instantly I'm twice as aware. And then I look into how believable somebody is. And you ticked every box, everything you said. I hung off every word that you said. And if I'm honest, when I have a look at people such as Joe Biden, I can't say that I was terribly surprised by the claims, but I was surprised that somebody had the guts to come out and make them. That was what I took away from that. And what's going on with that? There'll be people asking, is it going to go anywhere?
That's a good question. I mean, I was approached when I was in the United States to testify before Congress under oath, which I would really like to do. I'd been trying to get members of Congress to do that. And finally, Representative Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene said they were paving the way for me to be able to testify before Congress about what Joe Biden did to me. And then it evolved into, because Jim Jordan opened the investigation about the corruption of the FBI and CIA and the weaponization against citizens and against whistleblowers, would I be willing to testify on that committee? And I said, yes, and of course. And so that's where it was left. And I'm still trying to get that chance to testify, even though currently I reside in Moscow, Russia, for safety reasons. And Radha can get more into the legal aspects of that. But I'm very much safe. And I know I got a lot of messages this weekend because there was some drama surrounding Prigozhin and what was going on with Moscow. But Moscow remained very peaceful, and it is peaceful. I feel very safe, and I'm very well taken care of. So to answer that question, everything's fine in that regard. But yeah.
Yeah, well, you did answer a couple of questions because making such claims, I mean, I was concerned for your safety. And it turns out that if you do have something to say against one of the major people who runs America that they don't like, it is a safe place to be over in Moscow. Just if you don't mind me just getting slightly off topic, being in Moscow, what was the feeling on the street there when Prigozhin was allegedly marching back towards Moscow? Was there too many people who were worried?
You know, I have to be honest with you, and I spoke about this on the Spaces. The Spaces in Western media were just they were frothing at the mouth saying, this is the beginning of the end of Putin and blah, blah, blah. And that was not the feeling of the Russian people. The Russian people were right behind their president. They thought it would be resolved within a few hours, and it was. I had said on Spaces, this will be resolved in 48 hours. It resolved in less than 24, and, without any bloodshed, so to speak of. And people were... on the street, Russians they're very pragmatic people, and were just going about their business and kind of shrugged and said, this is definitely an argument between the military leadership that they're having, that they're trying to work out, and they'll resolve it. But they didn't seem to have any real concern. And, roads were closed to Moscow when they said there was going to be some sort of a march with whatever, and safety measures were taken, and that was it. And the streets remained very quiet. People went around doing their business. And yesterday I was walking in Gorky Park. I posted the video. It was a beautiful day. Families were out. Everyone's mood was very light and happy. So.
And sorry, just one more off-topic question before I get back on topic. What's it like living in Moscow for those who can't imagine, and all the disinformation that we hear about places, and there is a lot of it, whether it be China, Russia, North Korea. What is it like to live in Moscow?
I have to tell you, and this is going to sound, and I'm really not pushing propaganda either way, but I'm just telling you the truth because I am a truth teller. I tell it like it is, if it's bad or if it's good. I really enjoy it. Since I've been here, people have been very warm and accepting. Russian people love Americans. They love Westerners. They're curious. They want to speak English. I have to say, it's reminiscent of my childhood in the 80s or the 90s is what it's like here in Moscow, meaning there's just a lot of emphasis on families. It's a very clean city. It's very easy to navigate, even though I don't know the language. Things are very easy to access. Food is like food of my childhood. It has real taste because they've banned Monsanto and a lot of the pesticides and chemicals. So there's like that. The subway system is like, I've done a couple little clips of it, but it's literally like going through a museum. It's incredibly beautiful, incredibly clean. The streets are always clean. They tend to that like every day, a few times a day. And, there's an air of earnestness and innocence, I guess, in this culture because I'm coming from the United States, from Seattle area, San Francisco area, where those cities have just devolved into degradation. I don't know what's happening in Australia or New Zealand right now, but I can tell you in the US, we are in such a deep decline that the difference is remarkable. There's not that air of desperation here. So the people seem more relaxed as they go about their daily business. 80 to 90% of Muscovites, or, Russians actually, own homes and even a dasha, which is a country home, or own their apartment. So young people are graduating without educational debt, and they're able to, within a couple of years, professionally purchase an apartment or home. Now in America, and I don't know what it's like again in Australia and New Zealand, but in America, home ownership is just completely out of reach. My daughter is about to graduate with a master's. It is $100,000 in debt. I even helped her a bit, and she had scholarship. Still has that amount of debt. And I mean, that's the norm for young people right now. In America, they have no chance. So what I have to say is that at first I was really shook, like I wasn't going to be able to go back to the United States. Now I feel like, I wish I would have come here sooner. This is a better standard of living. It's more peaceful. It's more organized. It's more, there's health benefits. One of my medications is $800 a month in the US. Here it's $60 a month. And I mean, I'm giving these statistics because I want to tell people, you know, I've met other Americans who are moving here not just because they're having to, like in my case, seek asylum, but simply they can't get out of poverty in the US. And, you know, there's opportunities in Moscow and Russia. I would say look at it because there's really good opportunities here.
Yeah, you know, Tara, I don't trust the Australian media. I am literally the only person I know who worked in the Australian media in commercial radio who told the truth about things that have happened in the last 3 years, and I found myself sacked for it. I was proudly sacked for it, if I'm honest, and that's how I find myself here, and it's good to be rewarded for speaking the truth. I've got a bunch of questions that are on topic for both you and Radha coming up after this break, so if you could please both stick around, we'll get to that. And we're back speaking to Tara Reade and Radha Stirling. Radha, I will get to you very, very soon. And by the way, Radha, I would love to talk to you at length on a separate occasion just about some of the stuff you've done. The stuff you've done in your bio internationally is very impressive and something I think deserves a whole separate interview as well. Now, Tara, something I feel uncomfortable asking, and feel free to tell people to refer to the 60 Minutes interview. But for those who didn't watch 60 Minutes, and there are a lot of people in Australia who, after Liam Bartlett's little bit with Carrie Lake, who don't watch the program, if you would go, I wouldn't say into detail, but you can if you like, and tell people what it is that you're alleging that Joe Biden's done, and feel free to refer them to the 60 Minutes video if you don't want to do that or if you don't feel comfortable.
Well, yeah, I mean, basically, in 1992, 93, I was a Senate aide for then Joe Biden, and was very excited to be in Washington, D.C. I had worked for Leon Panetta. I had worked in congressional races, and this was the beginning of my political career, so I thought. And unfortunately, Joe Biden immediately started being, you know, like you've seen him portrayed, pretty creepy, putting his hands all over me, doing things like that. And then it culminated with a sexual assault that happened when I was handing him a gin bag. And I do go into details of the actual assault. It is considered under the law rape. He did force me. It was painful and it was violent. I was able to pull away and get away from him. He then walked away. He said some terrible things to me, which I go into detail in that interview. So you can watch the 60 Minutes Australian interview is a good one to watch for that. The details. And you also can see a videotape of me, of what I was like in 1993, because they played a video that I had working in Joe Biden's office. But yeah, it was very horrible. I tried to go through protocol. I did not go to the media. I went through protocol and reported it to the Senate. I filled out a form. That form is what Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene have been looking for. And basically, it's supposed to be sealed in the University of Delaware, according to Joe Biden's team, but they will not release it, saying it's not in the public interest. And so there's been a refusal to release my personnel file or to release that form. So I've been unable to get any movement with that legally or all the way to the state. Judicial Watch took a lawsuit all the way to the Delaware State Supreme Court, and they continue to rule in favor of Biden that it was not in the public interest to release the files that he has sealed. So
it certainly should be in the public interest to know what their leader may or may not get up to in private. I think that's very important. I think somebody's character, especially when that person is leader of the free world, I think it is absolutely, possibly to his detriment, but certainly something that every member of the world probably needs to be abreast of.
Yeah, I mean, and they went after me in 2019 with a vengeance when I came forward. I came forward when the other 7 women came forward. I was actually the 8th. And I saw them getting torn apart in the press. And I talked to my daughter, who was then an adult. You know, she's now an adult. And I said, okay, look, I'm going to say publicly what happened. I went to politicians first. I went to Time's Up. I went for help before I went public and did not get any. And so I went ahead and made it public. And of course, you can tell by the reaction, if they really didn't believe it or if there wasn't corroborating evidence, they would have just ignored it. But they didn't. And they spent a lot of resources trying to silence me and suppress and wipe me off the map. And literally Biden's team like went after me with a vengeance. It was unreal. From 2019 until the present, they threatened me with prison twice. I'm talking about the DOJ and Biden's team. They've used politicians. They've used the legal system to try to go after me, to silence me. And I refused to back down. And I kept being louder and louder because I felt like if I backed down, then anyone behind me would never have a chance to come up against a powerful person.
I absolutely commend your bravery for doing that. And I'd love to say I was surprised by all of that, but these days it's all too predictable. My next question is for Radha. And again, for those listening, Radha works with Due Process International. At which point did you become involved, Radha?
After Tara arrived in Moscow, actually, she contacted me. And it's not the first person I've helped who has had to actually seek asylum in Russia because of the weaponization of the DOJ. So I wasn't surprised at all that Tara was under this same risk, especially having gone up against Biden. The other gentleman I was helping had been persecuted because of Biden's sort of anti-cryptocurrency vendettas. They're basically criminalizing people who shouldn't be criminalized. And with Tara going up against him directly like this and in a very public way, she was at significant risk of being detained, of being listed on the Interpol Red Notice database, which would lead to her arrest in a foreign country, perhaps en route back to the United States. And even if she could be detained for up to a year. So we were very concerned that she'd be detained either en route back to the United States or on arrival back in the US. There's a some sort of sealed indictment against her in the US. The DOJ has successfully accessed her private communications on Twitter and other social media with a secret kind of court order for that access, which again is the weaponization of the DOJ. And she felt very unsafe that either her life was at risk or that her freedom was at risk. And either way, it's not a good option to return home to the United States at that point.
No, it certainly isn't. But I mean, just what Tara said about Moscow, it feels like, growing up in the 80s, I think that speaks oodles for Moscow and just how different it is to what they're telling us it is. The DOJ has been weaponized. We've had people such as Tucker Carlson put that out there. But, if Donald Trump is alleged to have done anything, everybody in the known world knows about it. Had it not been for 60 Minutes and a couple of articles I had to go and look up, I mean, I would not have been aware of what Tara has alleged. And that is very frightening in itself, that the media seems to be all one-way traffic when it comes to this type of issue.
Absolutely. And even now, talking about, we've made a United Nations application because her freedom of expression is, being crushed by the US, and we're hoping that the UN will ask the US for a response on that. But even with these actions, human rights issues, we have most of the left media closing this case out. Occasionally, we'll have a publication who's actually trying to, completely trash Tara in the media, call her a liar, or call some ex-CIA intelligence officer and ask that for their opinion, and they'll say, oh, maybe she's a Russian asset and this kind of thing, and they'll put all of that speculation in to try and distract people from the truth of what Tara's trying to say. And that's what we should be looking at. We should be hearing her testimony. She shouldn't be blacked out. If it was against anyone else that the left didn't like, we would never hear the end of it. So this kind of selective prosecution and selective coverage is really shocking for overall human rights.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, we've just become aware via an ex-Australian MP that I had on the program and one of our current standing senators last week, who's just told us here in Australia that they're putting forward a bill to control what is out in the media, what they consider to be information or disinformation. So they would, of course, in tune decide whose claims are newsworthy and whose are fake. And that in itself is frightening, because it scares me.
That's absolutely frightening. I see that all the time. Especially in America and particularly Australia as well, this whole disinformation and who's the arbiter of that truth. It's completely unacceptable. And really, I mean, that's probably one of the hugest issues that we have to overcome, because if they win on this sort of disinformation and censorship, how are we ever going to know what's real in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's terrific that Tara has you in her corner. And
yes, I feel very, very lucky to have Radha. And I was so honored that she took my case on, because she's very busy. There's a lot of people that need her help. And, you know, I was not even sure what my case was or how I could be helped. I felt like such a quagmire, but she's been able to really sort through it and also help me deal with sort of the media narrative has been that I defected, and that's the word that they used, which is an odd term because I was never in the military. And of course I didn't defect because we're not officially at war with Russia anyway.
Yep. Russia's
not the enemy. So it was a very odd word. So Radha's really been helpful with, you know, helping me through that. Not just like, but you can imagine emotionally what I'm going through, not being able to be with my pets or family. Suddenly, you saw me Australia, 60 Minutes, I had a horse and I have a whole life and friends. And to suddenly just have that pulled away, has been, I can't describe that. Yeah, as happy as I am here, I wanted to be able to go back and forth. And Radha, I have such gratitude for her ability to sort through all this.
Yeah, I'm just happy that, you know, you have the access that you can at least see your friends on, you know, some sort of Skype or whatever. It does make home just that little bit closer, but I'm absolutely over the moon that you found some asylum in a place that you feel safe, in a place that you said feels like the 80s. And I hope that that's where you get to fight this battle. I hope that the battle is won. And I think with the likes of the wonderful Radha Stirling on your side, I think it's a battle that can be won. And our hopes and our prayers go with you, Tara Reade.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Tara Reade. Thank you, Radha Stirling. We very much appreciate your time. Two very strong women standing up for themselves and each other, and that's what we need, people. That's what we need, strong people standing up. If someone does wrong by you, you don't cop it. You stand up. You take the fight to them. Otherwise, people will indefinitely just get away with things, and we can't have that here in this country.